Chapter 3 Ma Myrtle. Murky Branch had two churches, a gas station with 3 pumps, and a tiny hardware store that also sold bait and tackle. The largest and most successful business in the area was a restaurant called Flats, which was known for its universally adored swamp cakes. These were pancakes, but green. The universal adoration was somewhat in doubt. You could see the whole town from the rooftop of the Okra Lane Home for Seniors, and if the wind was right, you could catch a whiff of cooking grease from Flats. Not that many people were in the habit of standing on Okra Lane's roof. It was meant to be a quiet place, tucked away from the street behind a tangle of overgrown azalea beds. Most of the residents had seen their 80th birthdays come and go, and they were less than interested in shimmying up the shingles. This suited Myrtle Montgomery just fine. Ma Myrtle, that was what most folks called her, regardless of whether or not she was their ma, had an affection for doing what others thought she shouldn't. On the night Blue arrived in Murky Branch, the Okra Lane staff thought she shouldn't be out on the roof, and no doubt the other Montgomerys, if she had asked them, would have thought she shouldn't be tearing pages out of a certain, very important family history book that had been locked away for decades. But that was what she was doing. Ma Myrtle stood on the roof in her nightdress, slippers slipping against the eaves, and she ripped out one page after another. She shredded them with her bony fingers and tossed the pieces into the air. All the details about Walcott Montgomery's trip into the swamp drifted away like dandelion seeds. By the time Eve and Blue arrived on the scene, the book was half as thick as it had been. Ma Myrtle lifted it over her head in both hands and spun in a circle. "How do you like that?" she said to the moon. "Who's in control of the story now, you old rock? Who's going to have the last laugh this time around?" The moon wasn't in the habit of answering Ma Myrtle, but she laughed all the same. Eve Montgomery took stock of the situation on the roof and sent Blue to help the owner of Okra Lane fetch a ladder. After he'd left, she called up to her mother. "Ma Myrtle, what do you think you're doing up on that roof? You're scaring the daylights out of poor Mrs. Lane." Ma Myrtle squinted down at her. "Eve, my little Evie! Hello, young thing! Isn't it a wondrous night?" Eve's hands went to her hips. "It was wondrous until they called me out here, Mama. Sit down, and we'll send someone up to get you." "Nonsense, Evie! You know how I hate to be fetched." "What's that in your hand? They said you were tossing down pieces of paper." Ma Myrtle stretched herself taller. "They'll be coming here," she said. "Every one of them thinking the new fate belongs to them." "The other Montgomerys?" said Eve. "Of course they will, but that's got nothing to do with us." "It does now," Ma Myrtle announced. "I'm taking matters in my own hand. Our family missed the last red moon, 100 years ago. They were too busy fighting among themselves. They wasted their chance, and nobody ever made it to the alligator. Not this time." She punctuated each word by swinging the book like a judge's gavel. Eve groaned. "Mama, that had better not be the family history." "It's my book," Ma Myrtle retorted. "Because I'm the oldest, I decide who reads the story, and I've decided nobody reads it but me. Did you at least memorize the pages before you ripped them out?" "I'm not crazy," said Ma Myrtle. "Now step aside. I'm coming down." Mrs. Lane and Blue went to get a ladder. "Blue? Allen's left him here. Aha! It's already started. He's after the great fate." "No, he's not. He's just here." "Is he?" said Ma Myrtle. "Maybe so. With his curse, at any rate, he won't be much good for what I've got planned. Lord help us. Nobody's going to muddle it up this time, you hear? It's going to be a worthy Montgomery who heads into the swamp. I'm going to choose the person myself. We'll talk about it. I've already talked about it with the moon. Step aside. Eve looked over her shoulder. Here they come with the ladder. Ladders are for people who don't know what I know, said Ma Myrtle. She shook her head so that her wispy white hair flew. And what do you think you know? I know, said Ma Myrtle, throwing her shoulders back, when I'm gonna die. Eve froze. You mean? My talent, said Ma Myrtle proudly. I finally managed to see my own end. Mama! And it's not tonight. So saying, Myrtle Montgomery stepped cat-light across the roof and right over the edge. Blue shouted and dropped the ladder he'd been dragging. Eve shouted and launched herself toward the house. Mrs. Lane didn't make a sound, but she collapsed like her bones had been jellied. She and Ma Myrtle hit the ground at the same time. By all rights, Ma Myrtle should have been flattened like a swamp cake. But she was a Montgomery, and one of the lucky ones besides. Her talent was predicting the end of things. She never had to check the oven timer to know when supper was going to be done. And, grim as it was, she never had to check with the doctor to know when people were going to be done. She'd been making a nuisance of herself at Okra Lane by forecasting the expiration dates of her fellow residents, who hardly ever appreciated it. And now she was armed and armored with the time of her own death. That was what had prompted her to scale the roof in the first place, and perhaps it was what made her land just so in Okra Lane's fluffiest azalea bush. She rolled out of the shrub to face Eve, who still had her hands stretched out as though to catch something. Gracious, Ma Myrtle said, picking twigs out of her hair. That was the most exhilarating thing I've done in 20 years. Mama, Eve said, you're gonna... Are you sure you... Ma Myrtle beamed and spread her arms wide. I'm gonna die in exactly 37 days. And let me tell you, I'm not gonna waste an instant between now and then. I didn't much approve of Walcott's little book. It was a map of sorts, disguised as a story, and it was never meant to last. The Montgomerys, who would soon be flocking to Murky Branch, were hungry for details. They wanted to know when and how and where. They wanted an instruction manual. But Ma Myrtle, clever reptile, had wrapped her jaws around it first. Without the book, they would have only what they were meant to have, the legend. A red crescent moon, the sharp bite of fate, and me.